Hello Year 4, it's Mrs. Plews here with your English lesson for Friday the 27th of November. Let's have a look at what we're doing today. Okay, some feedback for you then on the grammar work we did yesterday. Well done, I was really impressed that you were able to use the coordinated conjunctions that we looked at, and I was particularly impressed with the presentation in your books as well. I know it's not easy doing work at home, so well done for keeping on with the good presentation that we expect in school too. So a next step for you all is, can you explain the difference between causal conjunctions, if you remember we used those in our explanation text, and coordinating conjunctions? So you might want to explain it to somebody you're with, or just take a moment to think for yourself, what is the difference between those two types of conjunctions? Perhaps you could give some examples of each too. Okay, just to get our brains warmed up this morning, let's have a little activity. Now this is linked to the spellings that Miss Fowler and I gave out a couple of weeks ago now, but we were working on shun ending words, okay, spelled T-I-O-N. So I thought I'd give you a minute and a half to just think of as many shun words as you can, so words that use the suffix shun. I've put a couple of examples for you there, attention and question. You'll notice one of those spellings I took from, one of those words I took from your spellings list actually. So use your spelling list to help you with this. It's a good chance to practice those spellings as we haven't been able to test you on them in school. And I'm going to give you 1 minute 30 to write down as many as you can think of. Okay, good luck. Great, well done Year 4. Hopefully that's given you a chance to practice some of those shun words we were learning before lockdown. Okay, let's have a look at our walk for today. It's a really nice activity today, so I hope you enjoy it. So our walk for today is to prepare poems to read aloud and perform, showing understanding through intonation, tone, volume and action. So something a bit different today, but we thought it would make more sense to wait and write our hot task together in school, our explanation text that you've been planning. So we wanted to put something a bit more fun in for you today. So we're going to work on some performance poetry, okay? So first of all, what is a poem and how are they performed? Okay, hopefully you know a poem is a piece of writing in which the expression of feelings and ideas is given intensity by particular attention to diction, rhythm and imagery. I feel like there's lots of new words there, and there are quite a lot of new words in your Walt as well. So I'm going to play you a video now that's going to explain to you what poetry is and how it can be performed. Okay, so watch carefully, and then we're going to talk about some of those words that we saw in the Walt, just to make sure we understand what they mean. So let me share this video with you now.
What I love about poetry is that you can perform it anywhere. There are performance spaces all around us. In the bedroom, in the playground, on a balcony, even from outer space. Through poetry, I get to play with words and experiment with how I say different things. Sometimes I perform a poem loudly. The war drums boom and shake the metal from the land. Sometimes I perform a poem quietly, The tiny mouse peeps and creeps as you sleep. Sometimes I perform a poem quickly. Fantastic fireworks fizz with fiery flame. Or slowly. I was at the end of the race, about to cross the finish line. Or mix it up. The rain was pattering. Then the thunder boomed. The lightning zipped, zapped, snapped. I was drenched to the bone. When I'm performing a poem, I like to think about the tone of the poem. Is it a happy poem or a sad poem? Is it an angry poem or a confused poem? Thinking about emotions in this way can help make the meaning of the poem more easily understood by making the tone clear. The grey clouds wept. A bucket of rain down on me on the stone grey streets. Sometimes a poem is written in the actual voice of a character. And if so, I will think about what that character might sound like. I am the troll that lives under the bridge. I eat all manner of things. I once ate a fridge. As well as using your voice, you can also use your body when performing poems. You can perform a poem sitting. My granddad's chair was a big, leather, dusty thing where coins hid down the cushions. Or even laying down. Gazing up at the winter sky, I saw the snowflake form. You can also use actions. Your body can help bring a poem to life. Instead of just hearing the words, a body can help an audience see the world that the words create. I often learn a poem off by heart to free up my hands, using simple actions and gestures to highlight certain words and phrases. I crept past a tiger, ran up a mountain, leaped over a canyon, and landed in a swamp. It's always lovely to notice the positive in a performance, to focus on what you noticed, what stood out, what made you smile, and what you remember. Sometimes when I perform a poem, I run out of things to say about the poem. I find it helpful to keep a list of words nearby. Words like interesting, dynamic, exciting, thrilling, emotional, hard-hitting. Growing up, I used to love putting on a show, but it took me a while to realise that you can put on a show with poetry just about anywhere, using all your acting skills to entertain friends or even tell someone that you miss them can be a whole lot of fun.
A really lovely video there. I hope that really explained to you what we mean by performance poetry. So let's have a look at some of the words that were in our WOLD that we maybe weren't sure of. Okay, hopefully that video's made them a bit clearer to you. So intonation, take a moment to think for yourself, what did intonation mean? So intonation is the rise and fall of the voice when speaking. So we try and give a rhythm to our voice. We don't just speak in the same tone all the time. Okay, let's think about tone. So the sound with reference to its pitch, quality and strength. So you need to make sure your voice is clear, okay, and that the pitch is correct. If you're speaking too high or too low, it can be difficult for people to understand you, okay? So the tone of your voice and the quality of your speaking is really important, and that includes pronouncing words correctly, okay? What about volume then? We should all know what volume means. So volume is the power or loudness of the sound. So as you saw in that video, you might use your voice to speak loudly at certain points in a poem to express the feeling or the emotion, or you might speak really quietly because that's what the poem is about. So perhaps you speak quietly for a poem about a mouse. Okay, and that's what the man did in the video, didn't he? And what about action? So this is where he was talking about using our bodies and our body language, our hands, our facial expressions. So a gesture or movement that can help the person watching you perform to understand the meaning of the poem. Okay, I know Mrs. Cross has shared a few of Michael Rosen's poems with you in some of our reading activities, and I know you've been really enjoying that. So I wanted to share another one with you today because this will help you to see how Michael Rosen performs his poems. And this poem, you might notice he wrote about one of your teachers. I wonder if you can pick which one.
strict. We had a teacher who was so strict, you weren't allowed to breathe in her lessons. She used to stand out the front going, "No breathing!" And you had the whole morning to get through. The weak ones just used to keel over and die. You'd hear them going down behind you. Kaboom, kaboom, kaboom. And there was always a whiny kid going, "Meh, can I go out and do some breathing?" And she'd say, "No, you've got all playtime to do it in." "Oh, go on, miss, oh, go on." Do you know, at the beginning of the week, there were 48 kids in my class. At the end of the week, there were only 5 of them left. Yeah, do you know, at the end of the day, you'd be stepping over kids just to get out the room. "Oh, no, there's Melanie. That's a shame, she's really nice." "There's Dave." "Hard luck, Dave. Always knew you were a bit weak." Do you know, people say to me, if that's true, how come you're here to tell the tale? Fair enough, and I'll tell you. It's because when I was at school, we used to sit at desks. We didn't sit round tables like you do now. We used to sit at desks with lids. And some of us figured out what you had to do was snatch a quick breath under the desk lid when she wasn't looking. So once more, from the beginning. No breathing. The weak ones. Kaboom, kaboom, kaboom. The whiny ones. "Miss, can I go out and do some breathing?" "No, you've got all playtime to do it in." "Oh, go on, miss, oh, go on." Us lot. Boom. Ah, that was the mistake. Slamming the desk lid down. If you made a noise with the desk lid, it was out. School prison. There was a school prison underneath the school hall where they used to string you up from the wall bars. "Miss, I've been up here for 3 weeks. And there's rats. And they're nibbling my toenails." So I figured it out. What you had to do was put your thumb round the edge of the desk lid. So when it went down, it didn't make any noise at all. Once more, from the beginning. No breathing. The weak ones. Kaboom, kaboom, kaboom. The whiny ones. "Miss, can I go out and do some breathing?" "No, you've got all playtime to do it in." "Oh, go on, miss, oh, go on." These other kids. Boom, out, school prison. "Miss, I've been up here for 3 weeks and there's rats and they're nibbling my toenails, miss." Me, thumb round the edge of the desk. No noise at all. Survival.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. And of course, that poem was written about your strict teacher, Mrs. Please. Okay, let's have a look at the poem you're going to be learning today then. So poems are really exciting to perform as they can bring a piece of writing to life in the easiest way, just using yourself. You don't need loads of equipment, you don't need props, you don't need to dress up, you don't need to do anything, just use your voice and your body language to perform that poem. So it's a really exciting way to perform with actually nothing needed. So we found a poem for you about ancient Egypt, and I wondered how you might bring this poem to life. So I'll just read you a couple of verses here, and then I'm going to have a go at performing it myself as well. So our ancient Egypt poem, there are more verses on our daily plan, and I've put all the poem on there for you to use to learn today. Okay, the ancient Egyptians lived along the Nile, and when the waters flooded, it made them smile. The soil became fertile, and so the crops grew. A healthy crop was oh such a lovely view. And a society grew by the riverside, which was intrigued people far and wide. They believed in an afterlife, and so when they died, the rich Egyptians were mummified. Okay, so that's the poem. Now, if you think back to the first video we saw, the man in the video did say sometimes he has words around him just to remind him of how he's going to perform his poem, or how he's going to say things, or any gestures he might use. So you might like to today jot some things down next to the poem to help you think about how you're going to perform them. So a bit of annotation here, if it helps you. So I think here, definitely where it says, and when the waters flooded, it made them smile. I think there I would probably need to smile in my performance. So perhaps I'd put there that I need to have a happy face or something like that, okay? So that will give me an idea of how I'm going to perform that. Okay, so like a happy face. Right, I'm actually going to have a go at performing this for you now. When I do, just think, what do you think of my performance? Perhaps you've got some feedback for me, what I've done well, and things I could improve, okay? The ancient Egyptians lived along the Nile, and when the waters flooded, it made them smile. The soil became fertile, and so the crops grew. A healthy crop was, oh, such a lovely view. Okay, I think I'll stop there because I've done my first verse. What do you think of my first verse there? Did I use my voice correctly? Did I speak loudly in the right places? Or perhaps I was too loud, or was I too quiet in places? See what you think. Perhaps you've got some feedback for me. Okay, I hope you've realised I was changing the tone and volume of my voice, and I was using whispering and smiling and things, but perhaps I was a bit over the top in places, and perhaps I was quiet in places I shouldn't have been. So it's thinking about how we use those skills correctly, okay? So I hope you've realised I've made a few mistakes there, and I'm sure you can do a much better job than me today. So let's just remind you, your WALT for today then is to prepare poems to read aloud and perform, showing understanding through intonation, tone, volume, and action. Let's just put a few steps to success on here then to help us. So what skills do you think you're going to need today? What do you think you're going to need to show us to show that you're successful in your work today? So I think really I should have used my voice to give expression. Oh, I know, I need to read the words really clearly for people to understand, don't I? So read and pronounce words clearly. What about the volume? Because I think my volume wasn't great in places, was it? Sometimes I was too quiet, and I was probably a bit loud in places I shouldn't have been. So maybe use volume correctly. Should we say use volume correctly so that the reader can understand you, something like that. And then what about those actions? So I did do a smile in mine in the right place, but maybe it was a little bit of a silly one, because we do want people to take us seriously when we perform these. So I'm going to say use body language and facial expressions. I think it should really add to the poem, shouldn't it? It shouldn't take away from it. It shouldn't just make people think you're being silly. So use to add to the poem. Meaning, I'm going to say. Okay, I'm sure you've probably thought of some other steps to success that might help you today, and that's fine. Okay, but just some there to help you. So when you have finished your performance today, it'd be great if you could show us a little learning pit and think for yourself how you're getting on with this. So your task is to perform the Ancient Egypt poem. I've put it on the daily plan for you. There are a lot of verses, so you don't have to do all of them. You might like to pick a few of them that you really like, but do try and do as much as you can. So you'll recognise some features from our poetry English lessons, but today you're going to prepare how you will read it aloud, showing understanding of intonation, tone, volume, and action. It would be great if you could send us some photos of yourself performing and share these with us on Class Dojo. And we'll carry on with this next week when we're back together, because it would be really lovely to actually perform some of these together in school next week, because it'd be really nice to be able to see what you've achieved. Okay. Good luck with your performances. Look forward to hearing them next week and seeing photos and hearing how you got on later today if you leave me a message on Dojo. Well done, Year 4. We're nearly there. Keep up the good work.